So yeah, I'm a very efficient one-person sweatshop now. I've certainly made my 10,000 books over the years, and I've got pretty good at being able to just do it and multitask, do several things at once, you know. I do say if I had a headset-enabled phone, I'd be just talking on the phone and making books at the same time. And this all stems from the time on the bench in Auckland, where I'd always have, well, not always, but I'd have a lot of company sitting on the bench, and I'd get to talk to them, and they get to talk to me, and I'd get to just make books quietly in the background like what I'm doing here now anyway. But I have got some new poems that I want to read out of that folder there. But I think I'm going to make one of them in a minute, so I'll just read that, and then as I make the new poems, I'll read them to you, if that's all right. I'm moving on to a new poem called Whisper, which is a sequence of poems called Whisper. And the good thing about it is, see that? Quality control has stepped up. I don't even recognise quality control now. It's somewhere deep in the back of me. There's quality control. So this poem is actually not called Whisper, it's called Whispers, plural, because there's a sequence of them. And of course I forgot to put the S on, just thinking, oh well. So look at this, amending it by hand. So now it says plural. So remind me I'm going to do that to the other ones. This is called Whispers number 3. It's a new poem, which is remarkable. The old guy reminded me of myself. He had a big grey beard, a sharp wit, and a sharp tongue. And he drove a state-of-the-art, highly modified 1994 Aussie-made V8 Ford. Vroom, vroom, it went. Nice car, I said, leaning out the window at the petrol station that offers the elderly people cheap fuel. Yeah, he replied, this one's a good pig, I'm going to keep it till I die. And then he leaned in closer to me, in through the driver's window of my van, and he said in a small whisper, all those new modern cars, they're shit, he said. Nothing in them's designed to last, or to be even fixed. And then there's all that digital electronic bullshit in a car now. It's just more bullshit in a world already up to its nose in bullshit. I fucking hate it, he said. Poem ends. Full stop. I've discovered that I am a what's that thing when you go to a Catholic church? A confessional. People feel free to just tell me anything they want because they know I'm not going to give a rat's ass about what it is they're saying. You know, it's just grist for my mill, and clearly if somebody's got something on their chest and they've got an opportunity to get it off their chest by just saying it to me, I'll take it on board. So this sequence of poems started when this young kid came up to me at a market in Wellington about 3 months ago, and he said, you remind me of my granddad. He said, you look just like him, you talk just like him. And he leaned in and he whispered and he said, you even smell like him. And I thought, whoa, that's very, confessional. And I said, oh, thank you. And then later on I thought about it and I thought, shit, people tell me stuff all the time now. I mean, they always have done, but I've never really taken notice of it because it was all garbage in, garbage out. But now I'm thinking, this is something rich I can mine. If people feel like they've got stuff on their chest and they can't get off their chest to anybody else but me sitting on the side of the road behind a bench unable to move, good on them. Yeah. Will you come to Flying Nun, Hector? Yeah, good on you. Good, you're good. So I'll probably need you at that end to carry a box or something. But I'll try and not overburden myself with stuff for this particular event. It's really useful nowadays because of the way I'm travelling. If I can get the van as close to somewhere and then not have to lug too much shit. But it's come a long way from having a self-contained mobile roadside attraction in a Kathmandu bag I could tow behind me on wheels. It's a lot more infrastructure than there ever used to be, I'll tell you. I'll read you some new ones for a while. This is called Empty Seat. And I wrote this. Oof. Oh, it's really recent. 18th of the 3rd this year. The worry is that, of course, you're not going to write any more poems. That the well is dry. You just run out of shit to say, whatever. Empty seat. There's that empty seat beside me in the car again. It makes poor conversation. It barely smiles at my lame-ass jokes and banter. Anyway, I order the empty seat a cold drink and I say a small karakia and perform a toast to all of the absent friends who have sat in that empty seat before. And every now and again, there are visitors who stay for a little while as you remorselessly move on. And later, they keep coming back as memories to be with you time and time again. Full stop. And I like, this is the new typeface that I'm using now as well. I actually paid 50 New Zealand dollars for a font for the first time in 30 years. I bought a font from a guy who'd made one that matched my rubber stamp pad set. And he was the only person in the world that had that, that font that perfectly matched my rubber stamp pad set. So I didn't mind giving him money, and he was a small graphic design firm in London. So that felt even better. This one's called $2 Shops. It's also new. Oh, hang on, David. What's your hurry here, mate? What's your hurry? Oh, what did I just do with that? Excuse me. $2 Shop. I traverse the fringes of the grey areas of consumerism. I stick tightly to my lane. I never indicate my intention, and I will only allow my hands to reach out for items on the list of approved purchasing. And I am next level frugal, where the bulk of stuff is off limits due to my many budgetary constraints and lifestyle decisions. I'm not a big fan of any brand or logo or any global conglomeration or corporate entity which has a reach into every electrified household on the planet. New cars, new boats, new household appliances, jet skis, high-end hunter-gatherer food fads, they do not register with me. I'm not a participant in the never-ending war on salts or carbs or fats or sugars or cholesterols. Adverts will barely touch the surface because I barely scratch the meniscus of mainstream media. You see, I just don't give a rat's ass about the things that most people now seem to be obsessed about. I've reached the age to be garrulous, to cut through bullshit and just not give a shit. I'm not trying to be attractive. I'm not trying to signal my social status or my availability. I've left all that stuff behind me a long, long, long time ago. Mostly now, in the $2 shop, the shit just passes me by, examined with a jaundiced eye and then put back into place on the shelf. I'm just here to buy some cheap band-aids, some cheap glue sticks, some cheap pot scourers, and a big bag of mixed rubber bands. Full stop. Poem ends. Full stop. So I get commissions too for poems, which is really good. People say, "Oh, write a poem about this, will you, David?" And so I do, you know. But not like, you know, it's not like, "Oh yes, I'll give you 10 grand for an original commissioned Merritt poem." Nothing like that. But you do get the odd person who wants to pay you a bit of money to write a poem specifically about them or for them, or they've heard you say something, and because you've reached that beautiful point where you've got your voice nowadays, and they all say it's about attaining a voice at some point, you know. And I remember a famous New Zealand poet, Hone Tūwhare, he said this to me at one point. He said, you know, you get your voice eventually, and it's not about what you sound like, it's about what you say and what it sounds like. And it's also how it appears written. So, you know, you've got all these different layers of complexity going on to the voice of poets. So this poem's called Hurry, and it was a commission. All day I hear talk. All day I hear talk of taking small steps. And all day I hear talk of taking small steps, and that progress has to be made with tiny imprecisions. But I want huge strides! Exclamation mark. Our time of timidity is now over. Full stop. And that's a poem that I wrote 8, 9, 10 years ago. I'd forgotten I'd written it. And the friend who commissioned it, her mum, because I'd printed it up on the back of a banana box cardboard, her mum just thought it was banana box cardboard and chucked it out. So I had to make her a new version of it, and I'm supposed to give it to her tomorrow at Littleton. Except I've just got a text saying she's in Auckland and I won't be seeing her tomorrow. But that's all right. So I've been making this format of poems, you know, the A3 fold-out poems, for a long time. It's 15 years, 16 years now. And I describe these things as my bread and butter. But I can't, and I won't, and I haven't sold these in bookshops. But because the literary blob runs on ranking people on the basis of poetry slam results, book sale figures from approved book sale shops, there's a lot of jostling for top dog position, and I didn't want to engage with that. But at the same time, I've realised that I have to. But I have to do it under my own terms, which means that I'm not going to get my stuff magically made overseas, get it perfectly bound. I want to control and do all of the means of production, from the writing of the poem to the design of the poem, you know, all the way through, everything. And that initially was because I wanted to be able to maximise the income I was making out of the poems that I was writing. I wasn't getting a subsidy from anywhere. And I really wanted the poems themselves to be money. And if that meant that I would put them out quickly and publish them fast, I did that. And as a result of that, sometimes these poems are barely finished before I publish them. But it's not so bad now. I've got so many poems to publish, it doesn't matter. Yeah. I'll read you this one next. This is called Broken Embrace. I think I probably wrote this while you still had the Dunedin residency. Broken Embrace. I have the puzzle in my hands right now, but I have no idea how to piece it all together again. What seemed to once work now appears to be broken. And you only have to say a few words for this to happen, and then nothing ever is the same any longer, anymore. We will never embrace like we once used to, because our lives have now become tangential, not parallel or side by side. But I am looking over your shoulder into my own uncertain future. It's without you or this or everything together. But, excuse me, pardon me, I am whistling with my prospects. These are my own alone. I'm calling my own shots. And I know that these things are flawed, but at least they are now of my own making. Full stop. Poem ends. Full stop. So in the course of my development as a roadside poetry attraction over the years, I have come into contact with every known glue stick available in the Western world. And after considerable trialling and erroring of many, honestly, I've probably got a filing cabinet drawer back in the workshop in Nelson of different kinds of glue sticks that I've tried over the last 10 terms. Because I keep them if it was one I couldn't get again. If it was a novel glue stick that I'd stumble into in one particular $2 shop, or was in a particular supermarket chain for a while and then disappeared suddenly, but they're out. And so I test them all. And I always had a price range. They had to be between like $2 and $5. I wouldn't buy a glue stick if it was more than $5, because that's a fucking lot of money to pay for a glue stick. And of course you were looking for that sweet spot where the price and the quality. And I quickly worked out that some of the more expensive glue sticks were awful. They were terrible. They couldn't last 5 minutes with the cap off, for example. They hated really hot weather, or they hated being taken out in the rain. They just absorbed moisture out of the atmosphere. Some glue sticks just didn't glue. You'd put them on a thing, and then 5 minutes later you'd notice you could just peel the whole thing back off. The glue hadn't even set. And so, that's not very good for a glue stick. And in the end I settled on a particular brand that I could buy in one of the supermarkets. I think it's Countdown. I think there's one on the table somewhere, but I'm not going to show you. Yeah, here it is. The pay-per-click brand. That's very good, $2.50. Hasn't changed its price for 5 years, which is remarkable. And the warehouse stationery available. And I suspect these are the same glue sticks, just rebranded by two different, importers. But who am I to say? And I've done a lot of research too into the history of glue sticks and the ISO standards that come now associated with them, because they've all got to conform to some EU standard of stickability in order to get some sort of certification, and then that certification means that you are, kosher for sale inside of the EU, whatever that means. Yeah. But now, anyway, what I'm getting at is now, these are my bread and butter. These little books here are my bread and butter, don't get me wrong. But because I have to now engage with the literary blob under their terms by creating a codec of a book that conforms to their expectations of what the codec of a poetry book should be. It's always A5, it's always got, anywhere from 60 to 98 pages. It's got anywhere from 37 to 58 poems inside of it. That's just what happens. They cost $30, you know, the slim volumes, as we like to say. So yeah, I'm making slim volumes, which is a peculiarity. But I've chosen an unusual way to make it, which pleases me. I just didn't want to go straight out and punch in some numbers on a giant printer and sit back and wait. But there are any number of now very sophisticated printing machines that will do this stuff now for you. You can press a button, it'll basically make you a perfectly bound book, just, you know, a couple of minutes later. And all of that online books that are selling nowadays, it's not like they've got a big warehouse of inventory. They will just make those books as and when they get ordered and ship them out, you know, 5 or 10 minutes after they've been made. And this whole concept is now called just-in-time manufacture. And it really came from the computer industry and from car manufacturing too, so you don't have a huge amount of cars choking up your supply chain. You're just making them as people are ordering them. You know all this. But maybe the people who are watching this, they've got no idea because, you know, they were born in post-new millennium. And we don't get to talk about stuff so much anymore. Or we don't certainly get opportunities to compare what our childhoods were like with the childhoods of people born after, say, Windows 95, who would have had an entirely different digitally based childhood than what we would have had when we were kids growing up. And in a funny way, Hector, we represent now the last generation of people who had an analogue childhood and now lead a fully digital existence. I do say you did go out and play football on rainy football, you know, Saturday mornings or whatever it was that you had to do in an analogue way. You probably had a paper round, you probably worked in a shop for a while, all these things you do. They're all analogue. You know, climbing a tree is an analogue experience. You can't replicate that experience on an app. So what I'm getting at is that we are now breaching, we now stand astride a big, huge split. People who had analogue childhoods but have become fully digital. And then I imagine we're going to see another split come up too, where you're going to see kids who've had a very digital childhood go more and more analogue as they get older. Because it's just not working for them, it's not satisfying a need inside of them, or they're realising that a lot of digital stuff that we consume, you know, doom swiping or whatever doom scrolling or whatever they call it, it's just garbage in, garbage out. It's time you don't get back. You won't remember it within a couple of hours because it's constantly replaced by more and more stuff. And we're in a time of high noise to signal ratios in every direction, you know. Everybody can be a content creator. Sharp people can write a piece of code to generate software, generate content for any number of platforms. And the whole process is largely automated. And, you know, we haven't even talked about AI and stuff like that. What that's going to do to change the content creation landscape. And it is already. You know, I'm having to be incredibly, not wary, but aware that I am skirting around the edges of AI now, basically to use its analytical tools, because I'm fascinated to see what its take is on contemporary society and some of the more unusual aspects of it. And also I like to test the AI. I want to see what's in that large language model they've been loading into it for the last 20 years. You know, starting with every scanned book from Google back in the day. I mean, the large language model that some of the AIs have got is just mind-bogglingly large. It's billions of terabytes of data. But they're giving me answers that a 12th grader could bloody come up with, you know. So hang on, I thought you were really smart. You're just giving me party line. So I don't want the AI just to feed me party line because that's all it's ever had in its large language model. So part of me wants to subvert the AI, give it some dissident thinking, make it think outside the strange box it's been placed into. So I like to start it off with just talking about some of the more obvious things, the magic bullet that killed Kennedy, for example. What's your opinion on the magic bullet that killed Kennedy? I innocently asked the AI. And then you get the standard, well, the Warren Commission in 1964 said that the magic bullet was, and you know that's bullshit. It's just repeating the Warren Commission, which was bullshit. And so you have to press it further and say, well, the Senate hearings in 1976 totally discredited the magic bullet theory. What's your opinion on that? So it's got to go fucking search for that next on the internet and update its thing. And you can see that it's learning as you go, as you're interfacing with it, as you're asking it questions, or as you're saying things, it says things back like, I've never thought of it like that before, says the AI. And I think inside, good, shit hot. I'm here to make you think things you haven't been thinking before. I'm not asking you to do my tax returns. I'm asking you to become slightly bit more revolutionary, if you can. Yeah. So yeah, we're living in some of the most interesting times I think I've ever lived through. I'm already in that beautiful grey area where I'm a poet. I've got poetic license. I can say what I like. If the government says to me, David Merritt, you're just spewing misinformation, well, so be it. Say, government, half the time you're spewing the same shit back at us as well, remember? No difference. And it's a bad sign, as we both know, Hector, when they come after the poets or the journalists or the painters or the photographers or the opposition leaders or the young socialists or whoever they come after. Yeah. So we don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen worldwide. We don't want that to happen in New Zealand. And so if I bite my tongue, I'm just aiding and abetting it happening. I'm just one of those people in that famous poem from Nazi Germany who said, oh, well, I wasn't one of those people, so I bit my tongue. You can't bite your tongue forever. Gosh, opinionated old bastard I'm becoming, Hector. It's a good job. No, I don't mind the job description. There would have been times when I would have just thought, oh my God, David Merritt, listen to yourself. But, no, you've got to be happy and pleased with yourself as you develop or come along in life. You've got to accept you've got these things going on that's not so good and change it, or look back and say, fuck, I fucked that up, and learn from it. And eventually, play your cards right, all the planets come into alignment, all the stars and galaxies swing into place. And if you're lucky, you'll get 10 years at the end of your life when you're very good, and then you'll die. Which is, that's good bit of poetic justice as well. Young poets, don't get too good, too fast, too quick, because then what you got to live for? You've got it all by that point. You're just going to be drinking Chardonnay on the literary festival circuits for the rest of your life. And that's pretty boring. I'm just doing a bit of stock take and inventory so I know what I'm doing next. Oh, and there it is, this one here. This one here's called Spinning Noises. First is David 𝔱𝔞𝔲𝔰. He's on that smart, deregulated, neoliberal spit, and he's spinning in his grave. He's telling us about trickle-down economics. He's telling us about his plutonium breath, and he's quietly dismantling the country with both Rogernomics and asset sales. And then there's Rob Muldoon. He's on that right-wing patriotism spit, and he's spinning in his grave. He's telling us about think big schemes for energy independence. He's dividing us like sheep with rugby and old school trade and tariff and subsidy thinking. And then there's the sound of Norman Kirk. It's the loudest of them all, and he's turning at incredible revolutions in his grave because he's telling the French and the Americans to both get fucked. He's funding the hippies. And he's building state houses and hospitals and motorways and universities and dams with the power of the state. Full stop. Old school poem. Those are the 3 dead New Zealand Prime Ministers from 1974 to 1995. And they were the most interesting Prime Ministers we've had for a long time. Yeah. Normandy was possibly our last very good Prime Minister. Purely because he was working class. He'd come up through the ranks of the unions inside of the railway movement, and he was one of those old school dudes that bicycled everywhere. He didn't get a car until he was an MP, for example. He was cycling vast distances to get to work and coming home. So he knew the working class landscape of the country really well, which is more than I could say for our current crop of politicians who've got no idea whatsoever, seemingly anyway. But don't get me started on that. This poem's called Currencies. Currencies. Small change gold coins, small notes, cheques, international bank drafts, nuggets of hoo-ha. Cigarettes, tobacco, coffees, tea, milkshakes, thick shakes, water, ginger beer, mince or steak and cheese pies, mandarins, oranges, bananas, plums, tins of tuna, bacon and egg butty, kebabs, lolly cake, chocolate cake, banana cake, lamingtons, carrot cake, cheesecake, cheese scones, cheese rolls, cheeseburgers, macaroni cheese, Afghans, chocolate, homemade chocolate brownies, chocolate biscuits, digestive biscuits, wine biscuits, malt biscuits, oaties, citrus slice, hot chips, potato chips, pita wraps, sweet and sour pork, bracket, no onion, unbracket, chicken fried rice, bracket, no onion, unbracket, apples, single malt whiskies, grilled lamb chops, sandwiches, toasted sandwiches, hugs, socks, sausages, sausage rolls, asparagus rolls, full rolls. Bed for the night, petrol vouchers, chewing gum, new Land Rover engines or clutch plates or bearings, ferry tickets, bus tickets, aeroplane tickets, lifts home, bus fare, other poems or zines or CDs or DVDs, Valium, toast racks, butter chicken, bracket, mild, unbracket, cashew nuts, almond nuts, Brazil nuts, nuts, pumpkins, pumpkin soup, good advice, sushi, email and web addresses, business cards, watercress omelettes, prayers and hashish, full stop, ends the poem Currencies. Which is a long list. The literary historians in the future will say, oh, David Merritt, you just wrote list poems. You just wrote poems that were complicated lists of things. And I would say, yep. At a certain point I would have got lazy. This poem's called Block the Sun. I've got a car so big that it blocks out the sun. I've got a lifestyle now so removed from nature that I'm mostly made from little bits of plastic. I'm toxic. That's how I roll. I spray all the spiders and I'm afraid of all the bacteria. I bleach and I sanitize everything, from my dirty dishes to my white shirts. I mow my lawns and I wage war on weeds. Everything I buy now comes processed by the big multinational corporations. My hair, for example, is twisted or straightened or curled or colorized or tinted or highlighted. I will body wash and I will exfoliate and I will scrub. My quest to control means that I'm obsessed now by the only things that seem to matter, my body and my appearance. Thus, I am masterful. Thus, I can control nature. Full stop. Poem ends abruptly. Full stop. So yeah, I'm no closer to working out what I'm going to do tonight, but that's all right. It'll just happen. This is about my car. It's called number 13, the Mongrel. I am leaking this week from too much standing still. Water will seep in through rivets and in through cracks, so sealants get applied and all the gaps will get filled. But I will pull in unusual places, driven both by gravity and Murphy's law. I will wet the bed, and I will soak your shoes. I will destroy your long coveted notebooks, and I will make a wet and pulpy nonsense out of your life in places. I am the puddle at the base of the gear-stick rubber boot, and I am the perpetually damp patch on the passenger seat. I will mildew your clothes, and I will produce strong ammonias from your socks, and I will smell damp for weeks and weeks and weeks ahead. Full stop. Poem ends. Full stop. Yeah, it's called number 13, the Mongrel, because at one point, at the height of my eccentricities, I woke up and I was in a paddock in the middle of nowhere surrounded by a great number of Land Rovers, of which the one that I eventually ended up driving as a daily driver was number 13 in the sequence. Okay, this is your last poem. Okay. It's called We Already Half Dressed for the War. My camo clothing, it fits me in a shapeless splendour. I wear oversize, both to disguise my figure and to just hide, to bulk up, to cover my peacock colours, and to sadly just drab down. And my camo patterns are made for the faraway conflicts, fought in foreign inhospitable regions by foreign military and corporate masters. I will blend into the deserts of Kuwait or Iraq or Afghanistan. I will blend into the jungles of Vietnam and Colombia. I will blend into the frozen wastes of the Arctic. And my green NATO jacket, fur hooded, is ubiquitous in this everyday Auckland urban environment. And I'm already half dressed for war. I'm casting about for the most appropriate places to fit in, and I'm already half dressed for war, thanks. I'm half dressed for conflict. I'm half dressed, ready to compete, to do battle. And we are legions. We're big data subsets and small slivers of socio-economic cohort tax brackets. We present as an army of misfits, untrained, ragtaggle, memorable for our ability to just disappear, to move like fish in the ocean or sea. We'll be invisible from certain angles. We'll be schooling for protective and collective security. Full stop. 2015. All right, so end of the David Merritt poetry experience for this afternoon.